Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Brooke.
And I wanted to kick it off with a question. I feel like we haven't asked this in a minute. What are you watching or reading right now?
Well, you haven't asked it in a minute, and I have read some books over the last couple months, but I am in a lull, so I have to pass on the reading. I did get a new book in today that I'm excited to dive into. N.T. Wright's new book called God's Homecoming, but I have not even started it, so I'm not going to fib and say that I'm reading it yet. But Megan and I have been watching a few shows together, which has been fun. There's this show on HBO Max called Rooster, and it stars Steve Carell from The Office, and Megan and I have just really been enjoying it because it feels like it's Steve Carell's character in The Office, Michael Scott, as a dorky dad who's got a grown adult daughter who teaches at this liberal arts school out east, and so it's been really fun. It just ended, and we were like, oh man, I hope it got renewed, and so we went online, and there's going to be a second season. That's good. So, but yeah, we've enjoyed that because it kind of feels Office adjacent to us with some goofy characters on the side as well. That's what we've been watching.
I just finished The Women by Kristen Hanna.
Yeah, I've heard so many good things about it.
What's it about?
So good. It's
other than the women.
It's a historical fiction book about the Vietnam War, and it's the story about one specific woman and her friends who served as nurses during the Vietnam War, and it was a lot about her time when she came home from the war and kind of everyone's reaction to her and her mental struggles that she had upon returning, but she wasn't really considered a veteran because women weren't allowed to fight in the Vietnam
so they
War.
didn't serve in the war. They didn't fight the war.
But she was still struggling with a lot of, post-traumatic stress disorder, having seen a lot of things and a lot of combat still, even though she was a nurse. And it was a really, really great story. I really like Kristen Hanna. I've read 2 of her books, and I'm excited to read more. And I'm currently watching The Crash on Netflix. It's literally just a documentary, but I don't have an hour and a half to sit down in one time. And it's about a girl who was 17, and she was driving with her boyfriend and one of their other friends in the car, and she crashed the vehicle. She survived the crash. Her boyfriend and friend did not.
No spoiler alerts here. My goodness.
I think if you've heard about this, it's known. But yeah, she was found guilty. So
I think I've heard some stuff about this.
Yeah, so they had some reasoning to think that
it was on purpose.
It was on purpose.
Whoa.
So it's been really interesting and sad, and there was just a lot of other sad tragedy going on. Their stories were all just kind of tragic in their own ways. So yeah, it's been
Is it a series or is it a movie?
Just a one movie documentary. Yeah.
I saw that Netflix just posted. I hadn't been on Netflix in a while, and I was looking at something for the kids, and I saw they posted a bunch of hour and 20-minute long documentaries about presidents and historical figures. I'm like, oh cool. Man, I'm going to waste so much time watching these because I just get sucked in that stuff. Yeah, that's cool.
So I've also been in a reading slump and a watching TV slump. So I wrote this question. I was like, oh no, I don't really have an answer.
You wrote the question. Oh my goodness.
But last night, Lucas and I watched Wake Up Dead Man, which is the third movie in the Knives Out franchise. That was really good. I really enjoyed it.
And as a Christian too, I feel like it portrays faith in a really interesting, and there's actually a guy who's a well-intentioned Christian.
It felt like a Christian movie if there wasn't cussing and innuendos and stuff. It felt like a very Christian movie.
Yeah,
it was really good.
It's really good.
Yeah, but it's a murder mystery series. It's following one detective, so all the other characters are always different, but it's one detective solving a different murder mystery. And it's very kind of like Clue. You have a bunch of different goofy characters with weird personalities and quirks and stuff, and all of them have a reason as to why they could have killed the person. And,
yeah. But it's really cool. I totally recommend it because it deals with faith and doubt in a really honest way. I just thought I'm sitting here this is hitting my soul a little bit the way it's talking about things, and it's also really entertaining.
Yeah.
So not suitable for little ones, but it's a really good murder mystery.
Yeah, that was really good. And then I'm also listening to the podcast Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, which is a Christianity Today podcast about the Satanic Panic. And so that's been really interesting, like hearing kind of the history behind it and like the lead up to it. And I've really enjoyed that as well. Yeah.
It's really from Mike Cosper from The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill fame. So it's really good storytelling.
Yeah. Both of those podcasts were really good.
So our first topic today, it's a Relevant magazine article titled Trillia Newbell, Christians Are Fighting the Wrong Battle. In a culture defined by outrage and anxiety, author and Bible teacher Trillia Newbell is calling Christians to fight a different kind of battle, one marked not by rage, but by steady, neighbor-loving goodness. She urges believers to overthrow the culture with good, following the example of Jesus, who commanded his followers to love their neighbors, even when it's inconvenient. Newbell acknowledges that the world genuinely looks grim, but points out that it has always been broken since sin entered the picture. What's different today is the sheer volume of crisis we're exposed to at once. Global suffering on our phones, political fights that demand instant moral positions, and church controversies that spiral before anyone has stopped to pray. Anchoring her message in Psalm 46, Newbell reminds believers that God is not sort of present, but fully and always near. Her challenge to the church is simple but demanding. Don't let fear make you faint. Don't let the noise make you weary. And don't surrender your faithfulness just because the world feels unstable. What do you guys think of this article? Do you agree with Newbell?
I find this really compelling. I think it's really helpful and encouraging. I've heard in multiple different places over the last couple of years that even though we're inundated with the terrible, dark things that are happening in the world, actually, the world is not all just a dark place. There's a reality of there were always terrible things going on in the world, but now we have them pushed to our phone, the headlines immediately. And there's actually been some studies done saying that we're living in the least violent time in the history of humanity that we've studied. There's less wars going on, even though there are big wars on our screens all the time, and there are real people being affected by it in terrible ways. There's less violence, less war than ever before. We're living in a time where people have access to food like never before, and places where there was extreme food insecurity now has access to food. And so I think there is a sleight of hand that these supercomputers that we have in our pockets give us, to where we think that everything is awful, but it's just multiplied because we see it and it's been thrown right up in our faces all the time. Same kind of thing with the political discourse that's going on in our country too, to where, I think Christians, there was always diversity of partisan politics inside of our churches, but what changed now, one of the things that changed was that people post about it online, and so now everybody knows what everybody thinks politically and who they support and who they loathe in office or who's running for office, and that also just seeds disunity, even though there was always diversity in this thought. But now we're like, oh, now I know that they support them or they support them, and it brings this disunity, even though those things were always around. Again, I think it's just a side effect of having these magic light boxes in our hands all the time that give us a window into the world. But I don't think that's the whole story. And I love how Newbell in the article, she just points out, instead of just bemoaning the bad, looking for the good, running towards the good, and creating goodness around us. I think it's a more compelling story.
Yeah. How about you, Abby?
I really love this. I think I agree with Joel. Like, I like what they said about, because of our phones, we're just so much more aware of what's happening. And so her little push to do good and find ways to see good in the world is really powerful. But it's so hard to do that when you have a phone and you see all of this and you see the terrible parts of the world constantly. It's really hard to strive for that. So maybe it's just putting your phone down more and focusing on the people around you. Yeah.
And I think our phones, and we've talked about this before, but our algorithms are so channeled to our own preferences that when, at least for me, when I do see someone's post or opinion that doesn't align with mine, it's like I almost am more angry because I've seen so much justification for my own side of the opinion or conversation. And so Yeah, it can definitely be difficult.
I'll get annoyed at my algorithm. It's like, why do you think I want to see this? Like, that's not, those aren't my opinions. That's not how I think.
Oh, but it knows you better than you know yourself, the almighty algorithm, right? Which is discouraging sometimes, right? I think as well, like, you know, with putting our phones down and not letting our screens dictate our moods and what we actually believe or what we focus on is so important. And it's not just putting our phones down, but it's about what we're picking up. And I remember, and what we're focusing on, I remember hearing years ago, Fred Rogers, you know, Mr. Rogers of PBS fame, he had this little phrase where he's like, whenever there's tragedy, whenever there's brokenness, look for the helpers. Like, and I think that's just a good reminder of like, what are we actually looking for? Because if we're just looking for the terrible things, and if we're just looking at our phones and we're just getting sucked into that, like that's what we're going to see. But if we're looking for goodness, and if we don't see it, if we're bent on creating it and bringing it forward, then it'll change so much of our outlook. Like what we focus on becomes our reality one way or another. And if we're just focusing on the bad that we see and just that kind of like, oh shucks, the world's going to hell in a handbasket kind of language, then we're probably not going to be a part of any kind of solution. It's probably going to be negative for our mental health. It's probably going to be negative in our relationships. And we're going to have this defeatist attitude that doesn't produce anything. But that looking for the helpers, looking for the good, and where you can't find it, be determined to step into the mess and become good and be a part of the good. It changes so much.
So you mentioned, you know, be the good, do the good. What are some easy ways that we can do that? You know, everything costs so much money, so maybe it's not, you know, stuff,
everything.
Maybe it's not where we are spending money, but what are some easy ways that we can be good in this world?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it does cost a little bit of money, but like I found that like I think it's a really beautiful spiritual discipline to, when you know people are struggling, to find a way to fill a need, like to bring a coffee, to bring dinner, to offer to do something for them. And it does cost you something. It might cost you a little bit of money. It definitely costs you time, but that's you not just saying, oh man, they're going through hell. Isn't that terrible? And it's like, what can I do to alleviate some of that? How can I step into this story to just bring a little bit of light? Like, I mean, how many of us, our days have been lightened and brightened through Starbucks or Seven Brew or some kind of like drink delivery or something that's just, you know, right there for you. Or when you don't have to worry about dinner and then dishes afterwards. It's a huge deal. I think it's a really powerful spiritual discipline to bring a meal to somebody or to pick up the tab or to just lighten their mental load by doing something for them. So I think it starts with this simple, hey, they're going through something. What's a way I can offer help? Yeah. I think that's as easy and as like entry level as it gets, but it's still challenging because we stack our calendar so much. We protect our me time so desperately, and we're busy with family, work, kids, hobbies, and things like that too. But I think it starts with, okay, someone's going through something. How can I, you know, lighten their load? If you see someone online going through something and you see people piling on, how can you speak a different word into it? Just be like, hey, I love you, or hey, you're more than this, or hey, you're going to get through this, you know, kind of thing. I think those kind of small moments are just a step in the right direction to be helpers. It's interesting, like Rogers doesn't say this, and I don't think Jesus calls us to do this either, but like we're not saviors, we're not fixers, but we can be helpers, and we can come in and lighten a load, to serve, to make life just a little bit easier, just to get them around the next corner of life. And I think that's where it starts, is just something simple, small, offering help, offering prayer, stepping in a gap.
Yeah. I think sometimes when you are looking at the whole world's problems, it feels really overwhelming and hard to know, like, where is my place in this? How can I be a helper in a world that feels, you know, so destructive? But like you were saying, just stepping in little ways for the people who are going through things around you can be the start to seeing a big difference and seeing more good in your communities and hopefully beyond as well.
Yeah. And I think it's not only a help for yourself, like to be able to see the world and do better and all of that, but for the friends that you're helping, they start to see the world in a different perspective because of
They're not
you.
alone.
And hopefully it continues to spread and spread and spread. And that's what I hope that we can do from here.
Definitely.
Yeah. Our next article today, it's a runnersworld.com article titled "This Blind Runner Ran a Half Marathon with His Glasses Giving Him Directions." Thomas Panek, CEO of Lighthouse Guild and a blind veteran endurance runner, made history at the 2026 New York City Half Marathon by running 13.1 miles through New York City using AI-powered glasses, co-developed with Lighthouse Guild AI in collaboration with Meta engineers. While Panek still ran alongside a human guide for safety, the glasses were designed to take over many of the traditional verbal cues. The glasses proved invaluable in ways that sighted runners often take for granted. They provided accurate mile marker readings by visually confirming signs rather than relying on drifting GPS, correctly identified the course crossed the Brooklyn Bridge rather than the Manhattan Bridge, and even described the crowd of Lightning Guild supporters cheering from the sidelines, something Panek said he had never been able to experience in over 20 marathons. Beyond the race, Panek sees this technology as a gateway to greater independence for the blind and low vision community in everyday life, from navigating grocery stores to finding elevator buttons. For Panek, success means seeing this tech used freely in the wild, empowering blind individuals to move through the world more independently than ever before. What did you guys think of this story? I thought this was awesome.
Yeah.
Just AI saved the world again. So it's
Again.
it's what it did. So no, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. I got on and was looking up some videos more about just like the Meta glasses because I really don't know that much about them in general. And I was in absolute disbelief, you guys. I know we've been saying this for a while, but we are really living in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend here at the church, shout out to Todd, who has not Meta glasses, but he's got some glasses that have some of the this functionality because he has low vision or no vision. And it's just really cool, like being with him and like, you know, it'll speak to him about an incoming text or it'll look things up for him, kind of like Siri would. But it's just like really, really cool that it's got that functionality to make life just a little bit easier and accessible for people no matter what your vision is. So it blows my mind to think about, like, I mean, just the idea of, you know, running the New York City half marathon, but also like not seeing what's happening, like every step. Like you couldn't convince me like to like jog to the other side of the room with my eyes closed because I feel like I'm going to trip over something. So I don't know, like the technology's there and he had a guide there, but also like, man, just the trust of like running in darkness, like it blows my mind. It freaks me out a little bit, to be honest. So this guy is so brave, and to think about doing this with and having technology that can aid him to do it is really beautiful. Yeah.
I've heard so many bad things about Meta glasses, like people are using them to record interactions and post them online, and the other person had no idea they were being recorded, you know, so many terrible things. And like when I first heard about Meta glasses, I figured it would be stuff like that or, you know, something silly. But then hearing this story, I know it's not specifically Meta glasses, but it's very similar. Like, it's crazy what technology can do and what it can enable people to do. Like, there's so many inventions that people say, oh, that's so silly, you know, no one needs that. But then you look at someone who's disabled and it's like, this can really help them be independent and live their life. And so I think that's really awesome.
I think too, like, it's just an interesting illustration about technology and how technology is really a neutral thing. You know, as you talk about people using Meta glasses to do terrible things or take advantage of people, technology itself and the Meta glasses are neutral. It's about whose face they're on and whose hands the technology is in. And there's so much about technology that can connect people and encourage people and bring everybody into the conversation. And there's other things about technology that can be destructive and break things and tear families apart. I think that's a lot of what in the early chapters of Genesis, you hear the story of the Tower of Babel. And that's really more of what that story is about, is not about God just like getting mad about technology, but seeing the thing underneath the thing and what people wanted to use technology for. And they wanted to make a name for themselves instead of connect with God. And that was really the struggle and the problem with the Tower of Babel. And I think it's still the warning for us in our technology today to be like, okay, we have this incredible technology. When it's in our hands, do we use it for good, or do we use it for greed and selfishness and destruction? And so this is a great story of seeing like oh, look at the good that technology can do when we point our technology in helping people instead of just advancing our desires.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you guys, what was a piece of technology that as a kid you thought was so impressive, like this is the future, and you just had to have it?
So I'm a little bit older than you guys, and this is pre-iPod, but this was a time, the wild, wild west of the internet and different file sharing programs called Napster and LimeWire, to where you could download MP3s and people could share music files. And then you could have them on your computer to play them on, like what I used, Windows Media Player or things like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I had those programs on our family's computer in the computer room. Like that's a whole different thing too.
Yeah.
From the 90s, right?
Yes.
But I also, for Christmas, I really wanted this thing called a mini disc player. And a mini disc player was like a early version of what an iPod was, in every way just worse, because you had these little like drives that you would put in, and you could write audio files onto this mini disc player. Do you guys even know what I'm talking about when I say mini disc player?
Not the mini disc player, no.
I love this so much.
I had an MP3 player, but
yes,
not a
so
mini.
you would have a physical like disc that you'd put in, and it was like a Walkman, but it's called a mini disc player. And I remember this Dave Matthews album Busted Stuff came out in 2002, and it was like came out 2 days before the release, and so I downloaded it illegally. Come and get me, I guess. I just admitted to this. But I would get it, and I got it on my mini disc player. But it was like the most annoying thing. It took forever to write, and then it would like mess up a bunch, and you could only like hold like 6 songs on a mini disc.
Oh
and
my
so you had to
gosh.
like do 2.
So-
it was so dumb. But it was like early or like late 90s probably is when I was doing this.
Was the mini disc like a floppy disk essentially, or
Essentially it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a little hard drive kind of thing. It was a little circular. It looked like a mini CD.
Okay.
I actually looked it up on Amazon, and it's like there's still like you can get them used, but like it is a outdated technology, a high speed net MD Walkman. It's really what I wanted. So yeah, that's what I had. But yeah, that was like, and I thought this changes everything because I can get files off the internet and just write them on these little mini discs, and I'll be jamming to my tunes.
That is actually
Changed
pretty cool.
everything. And then Steve Jobs came out with the iPod,
yeah.
and it was all over with. Yeah.
Well, that was mine. I remember
Yeah.
getting my
Oh,
first
look
iPod.
at this, the iPod.
In
1,000 songs in
2005, yes,
in
I was
your
in
pocket.
5th grade, and at Christmas time, my mom got me the iPod Nano, and I can't remember, it held 500 or 1,000 songs. I remember I maxed it out too quickly because I've always just loved music so much. But then in 2007, I got the iPod Touch, the first
Yes.
iPod Touch, and you could put up to 2,000 songs on there if you didn't have too many apps downloaded. So that was like, I remember thinking like the iPod was insanely like so advanced, and then the iPod Touch came out, and of course like that was really cool. It came out I think the same time the first iPhone came out, but all of like the apps and videos and all of that just like at your fingertips, that was really new for me. So
Yeah.
I will. One note on the iPod. My first iPod was an iPod Video.
Yeah.
And this was like 2005, I think. And I just started dating Megan, and I remember downloading episodes of The Office and episodes of Lost on my iPod Video, and I would sit with Megan and we would watch it on this
Cutie.
little
Oh,
screen.
yeah.
Like this screen was like 3 inches max, and we were like, check out this, it's in high definition on my little
Oh my
iPod
God.
Video. So embarrassing.
That's so
Hilarious.
funny.
Amazing.
Different
Technology's
times.
changed a lot.
yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff growing up for me that I feel like I wanted, but just because my older brothers had it. Like I wanted a Game Boy because they had one. I wanted a track phone because they had one, stuff like that. But then when the Wii came out, I was like, we have to have this. This is the coolest thing ever. The controllers don't have a wire connected to the console. Like I thought it was so cool. And so I think we had gotten it for Christmas one year, and we just had so much fun with it for years and years and years. But yeah, I thought that was the coolest thing. Like it couldn't get better.
What was the Wii game that you played the most on the sports thing? Wasn't that the original?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there was the
Bowling.
sports, like the bowling, and then there was like Wii Resort, which was on an island, and so you could fly planes around and do water skiing. And I don't remember which one I played the most. I played Animal Crossing on it, which had you didn't have to move around to play Animal Crossing. You just sat on the couch.
I didn't know Animal Crossing was a thing when the Wii came out.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a more recent thing in the last.
No, it's been
7 or
out
8
for a
years.
long time.
I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah. And the thing, I'm going to call my mom out for this, but
Boo, roasted.
Animal Crossing is like a real-time game, so like whatever time it is in real life, that's what time it is in the game. So like one day in the game is one day in real life. On Sundays specifically, there was like something where you could buy turnips and sell them for like really high, and my mom would not let us play Sundays because of church. She's like,
You
Sunday
can't sell
mornings,
turnips on the Lord's Day.
Sunday mornings are for getting ready for church. We can't play right now. She would get up really early and play by herself and buy turnips on her account.
That little stinker.
And I found out later,
Clocked.
I'm like, we're not allowed to play, but you can. She's like, yeah, I'm an adult.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
We loved our Wii. It was so much
I'm
fun.
telling you, the Wii was like a game changer because you felt you could stand up, you had to be
Yeah.
active with it. I remember being like, you just can't say I'm lazy playing video games because I'm like standing up and
Absolutely
moving.
not. You
I'm
ever
swinging
played
my
Just
arm
Dance?
like a baseball bat, Mom.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
come on.
I still have our Wii, so
Yeah.
if anybody wants to,
Does it
Have a
still
night.
power up, you think?
it does. Yeah,
Well, let's go.
It's been a couple of years since Matt and I have played, but like in the last, I would say 2 to 3 years, we have hooked it up and played. Mario Kart is our game of choice, but
Yep. We'll have it at our next work party.
Let's make it
Yep.
happen.
Yep.
yee.
Our last article today is a religion news article titled, "In Los Angeles, a sister offers shelter and mercy to immigrants convicted of crimes." Sister Teresa Groth, a 70-year-old member of the Daughters of Mary and Joseph, serves as executive director of Francisco Homes in Los Angeles. The program houses up to 95 formerly incarcerated men across 10 homes, providing transitional and permanent housing alongside re-entry services like food assistance, health insurance, job support, and programs such as AA, NA, and spiritual reflection groups. On average, residents have served 28-year sentences and stay in the program for about 12 months. A growing challenge for Francisco Homes is the threat of deportation facing non-citizen residents. Under U.S. law, even legal residents convicted of serious crimes can be deemed deportable, and the current political climate has intensified that risk. Groth finds herself largely alone in advocating for these men, as even prominent Catholic voices have suggested deportations should target violent or serious criminals, a position that doesn't fully account for the complex, trauma-filled backgrounds of the men she serves. Two residents, Artie and M. Perez, illustrate the human stories behind these policies. Both men endured severe trauma, addiction, and mental illness before their crimes, and both found transformation through faith and the support of Francisco Homes. Despite still facing possible deportation, each has embraced rehabilitation. Artie now holds 2 jobs and a peer counseling certification, while Perez lives with daily gratitude and trust in God's mercy. What did you guys think of this story?
I thought it was great. Honestly, when I read it, it was kind of like connecting this article to the first article that we talked about and just
the goodness.
seeing the goodness. And I always love to hear stories of rehabilitation for people. And it sounds like Teresa and everyone who is a part of Francisco Homes really gets to know the people who are living in their facilities and really cares about their story. And I think that's a great start to rehabilitation for these people, is like just getting into, you know, the messy part of their story and the reason maybe why they are who they are or have committed the crimes that they've committed. I'm not excusing those, but sometimes when you know more about somebody's background, you can be a little bit more understanding as to how they ended up where they are. Yeah, I thought it was a great article.
Yeah, I think this really highlights just this different way that we tend to think about justice in America, or maybe just in the West, where we tend to think that when somebody does something wrong, they need justice, which means that they need to be punished. We think of justice just being retributive or payback, or they did something bad to me, so I'm going to do something bad to them so they know they can't do that bad thing to me again, right? And we tend to think like justice is like John Wayne or some kind of sheriff or the Mandalorian coming into town and just taking out the bad guys kind of thing. And it seems to be what the owners of Francisco Homes are picked up is more of a well-rounded biblical understanding of justice, that justice all over the pages of the scripture, talked about hundreds of times in different ways, is most of the time not about retributive justice. It's not about payback. It's about restorative justice. The Hebrew word mishpat, which means restorative justice and putting things back together, putting the scales back to the way they should be because there's been oppression or there's been something broken. And I think that what the people at Francisco Homes have actually picked up is a more robust biblical understanding of justice, of seeing like these people is complicated, and they've had complicated things thrust upon them, and they've had trauma that they've had to walk through. So instead of just seeing the end result was they did something that they landed in prison for and now they need to pay for it, it's actually slowing down, as Brooke said, to like hear their story, get to know them, and to like sort of go back to how can we heal the trauma that's going on and how can we help you move forward. My heart just sings to stories like this because I think that so much in our American justice system is just bent towards this retributive justice. And for a country that talks a lot about being a Christian country, we don't have a very Christian understanding of what justice really could be and what it should be. And hearing these stories of people that have been through these tough times and have done things that I'm sure they regret and that it's caused harm, but seeing them have a second chance and be rehabilitated to transition back to normal life is really, really beautiful. And it just feels like it's dripping Jesus all over these kind of stories, which is really cool for me to hear.
What changes do you think we'd see if there were more houses like this across America?
I think for sure the re-entry would be lowered. I think it's pretty clear in studies across multiple disciplines that the re-entry to prison is a huge issue because people spend a lot of time in the system, and then when their time is up, they go back out into the world, but they don't have a support system. They don't have skills. They have an F on their record. That means felony. So where most businesses will not hire somebody with an F on their record because to them it looks like a risk. And then like, what do you expect me to do? I'm probably going to go back into the one way I knew how to make money, which was something that was illegal. And without building a community and friends that are healthy, they go back to those same people that they were hanging out with beforehand. And so there's just a huge need for having transition housing and rehabilitation so that people don't go back into prison, but they are actually given the skills so that they can move forward. I listened to this podcast recently that a principal friend sent me in a public school here in town, and it talked about discipline and how, like, in schools, you discipline kids by, missing recess or suspension or expulsion, and how those punishments really don't speak to what's really missing. What's really missing is they don't have a tool that they need. They don't have a skill that they need in social situations and classroom situations. So it'd be a really powerful thing if schools started like building the missing tool, the missing skill, instead of just punishing them for the tool and the skill not being there. I think the same is true inside of our justice system. And so I would love to see more of these places pop up in our community. I'm actually not sure if there is one in Howard County, but I'm like interested now. So if you're listening and you know about one, let me know. But would love to talk about what it looks like for our community to have something like this so that we can wisely, but also compassionately help people enter back into the story of culture and of life in our society.
Well, that's it for this episode of Atypical Talk. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to talk about, you can email those to atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Atypical Talk Pod. And make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to get updates when new episodes go live. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there down here in your everyday life. Thanks for listening.